allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Do it. Vicky? Here. Lerner?
Here.
Wenzel?
Here.
Hoover?
Here.
Chanel?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Ray Teal. Okay, moving on into approval of the agenda. Support. Motion has been made and supported to approve the agenda. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public statement regarding current agenda items only. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion has been made and supported to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 8, accounts payable, AP without root note, 175-214.85.
So moved. Support.
Motion has been made and supported to approve accounts payable without root note. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. AP root note invoice, $2,825.
So moved.
Support. Motion's been made and supported to approve the root note invoice. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Motion carries. No unfinished business. Moving on into items for action. Resolution 24-2022. Traffic control order for East Liberty Street. James, would you like to present this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. You have some excerpts from the traffic study that was done, and it's been reported the schools are pursuing the double loop system off of Broad to help relieve the congestion at the intersection with Main. And based on the counts, we're hopeful that should work. There were other traffic issues that have been relayed about on Liberty Street. That's actually a different group of parents picking up preschoolers, I understand. And so the schools want to take a different approach there. They're going to communicate with parents about not showing up and queuing on Liberty Street. That, they really can't get in there until the buses are out of there, and giving them that time. That if they do come before them, they're encouraged to wait somewhere else and not park on Liberty Street. Last I heard, they were going to be talking to Knights of Columbus about letting folks wait there, or to, they had another alternative site they were looking at. And so this would be to post no parking standing stopping signs on that section of Liberty east of the driveway to the village limits. We're within there, there's no shoulder there. There creates a concern, and we would post those signs and enforce them. Schools will communicate the process, and that's the recommendation. I can answer any questions.
What is the problem with just parking and picking up your kid like people do? I mean, why do we have to have this loop system that we all have to queue in order to pick our kids up outside? There was a period of time where our kids went to the gym and they were organized by grade, and you went and stood in line and you picked your child up from a line when you got there. You just parked in a parking lot. since COVID, they won't allow us to come into the school. And we now have to sit in this queued line for 25 to 35 minutes every single day just to go through the line and pick up the kids. Why don't they just let us back in the school to prevent the traffic issue? Why are we spending money on a loop system when we could just go back to the other way?
That's a really good question for the schools. I can't really speak on their behalf. I don't.
What, did a school representative come today? Since they're proposing this, why didn't a school representative come?
Yeah, so they're proposing to do it, but that's not necessarily what's on the agenda. What's on the agenda is just more parking on Liberty Street. The actual site changes are under the school's privilege to do. So that isn't necessarily for us to approve or not. And I'm sorry, I don't have all the operational reasons why they do it the way they do. I have my own.
Well, it's only changed since COVID.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
would like to speak on Liberty Street.
Thank you, sir. Frank Garrett, by the way, I'm the Night Coast TV Liberty. I represent about 10 houses on Liberty Street, the ones closest to the school, okay? And there is a major safety issue.
Major. Same thing going on Broad
The
Street.
road, you know, that they line up starts at 1:30. I heard a Birdie say, which is the principal of the school earlier this year, and I seen it, 1:30. It starts really for them 2:30.
2:30.
By 2:45, they're back up to the village limits. Now, I was stuck there, and my wife wouldn't turn around, go around them, because the Quacken bushes, there's a private drive where you got the Quacken bushes and the Beermans on down. One of the Quacken bush boys couldn't turn left because of the traffic was there. And he turned right, and one of the cars tried to turn around and go around, and they came this close from a head-on collision.
Every day
This
on Broad
village
Street.
has suffered a tragedy this week. We don't need another tragedy in this village at all. I reached out to our chief to stop it last year. I got stonewalled.
She has tried. She can't do it. The school did not want to.
Oh, back up there. State law. Michigan state law. And by the way, I had a nice visit this weekend with, say, Shiawassee County Sheriff Brian DeGole. He showed up to our house. Campaigning, but also 2 weeks prior to that, I talked to Stacy Wilburn. I saw her at the Honey Festival. I told her about this. And I had a suspicion she sent the sheriff down there to see us. And I walked him down there. I said, look, Sheriff, look, Sheriff, look, Sheriff. He said, quote, it's a law enforcement issue. She is a sworn law enforcement officer. Sorry, I got some bad issues. She took an oath to preserve and protect. She did not preserve public safety because, let me finish there's almost a head-on collision. Then, why is it personal to me? We were stuck, my wife wouldn't go through it, and I was in pulmonary distress. That puts my public safety in danger. This is a law enforcement issue. Sheriff DeGole told me it's her duty to uphold the laws of the state of Michigan. And I threatened, I will go to the Department of Transportation, I will go to the Michigan State Police, and trust me, I got his card. He'll throw his hat in the ring and he'll notify the Sheriff Department, Sheriff Federsfield. It ends today, period.
So you're telling me as a mother I'm not allowed to get in line and block a road to pick up my child?
Nope,
Is this why
you're
you're
not allowed
screaming at
to.
me?
State law, period.
I'm thinking that you probably want to go to the school board meeting next.
No, I'm going to the sheriff. That's where I'm going to next.
Okay, let me stop you right there.
I mean,
The sheriff has no jurisdiction on
Well,
that
we'll
road.
see about that one.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, we're moving on. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Let the games begin.
Okay, cool.
I think you need to contact the school district. The school district is the ultimate problem here, not the
Let the
village.
games begin.
All right. So, with that said, we have this resolution.
Laugh.
Do we want
Laugh.
to, please stop.
I got witnesses.
Please
Okay.
stop.
I'm having the same problem. I'm on your side.
I don't believe
and
it.
I'm
I'm gonna
trying.
leave. I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave. I don't I've been lied to, I'm sorry. I am gonna notify the other residents on East Liberty that we have been stonewalled as a community again.
If I may,
Mr.
Mr.
Herrick.
President,
Please.
so the proposal on the table is to post no stopping, standing, parking signs on East Liberty.
Yes.
And the intent would be that our police department will enforce that. That's what I'm proposing, and I submit that for your pleasure.
Are the residents, because I know they brought it, like this came from a resident's complaint, and there was a group of people that, on Liberty that were discussing.
Yes, they're one of
It's
of
not
many
just Liberty
sources.
though.
Yeah.
Broad Street is
Yeah.
far worse
Oh,
than
yeah.
Liberty Street.
But do they know that by doing this will, like any event, it doesn't, if they're having a kid's birthday party, a garage sale, if somebody parks on the side of the road, they're gonna get ticketed.
You would have to enforce it. And fair to say, if somebody's queuing there, like any good law enforcement agency, they're gonna make contact and say, hey, you can't. And there'll be ample warnings given before we get to a point of actually issuing citations.
Yeah.
Are they going to uphold this though for Broad Street also?
So, this is not, to post, that no stopping, standing, or parking on Broad Street. As it is, any roadway in the state of Michigan that's not otherwise posted, allows for parking. That's the default, that's the basic law of Michigan, is that a road can be parked upon unless it's posted otherwise. And that's up to your discretion to determine where you want those areas that you feel are unsafe to do so. Generally, there's a shoulder there or some other grass or right of way space you can pull off on. Broad Street, not necessarily be the case because it's a curved road and, it is narrow. If you want to take enforcement action in that regard, it is the council's privilege to do that. You would have to, post, do similar traffic control order and have signs posted in order for it to be enforced. But otherwise, the default basic law in Michigan is that any road can be parked upon.
Well, but technically nobody's parking on Broad Street.
Right.
It's just
There-
standby traffic.
Which is the same on Liberty. I believe it's the same thing on Liberty.
See, the
They're
way-
waiting to pick up their children,
Correct.
just like Broad Street
Right.
is waiting to pick up their children.
They're doing
the same
what they
thing.
would be allowed to do, as long as they're, pulled over as far as.
That's what I'm
On the
understanding,
paid
is
portion
people
of it.
like to stop half on the road, half on the shoulder, or the three-quarter, whatever.
Without posting it, it would be generally considered to be legal. The fact that there's not much shoulder room and the congestion of that does create a concern. And that being more so because it is a through road that heads out of the village.
I would think the more concern would be on Broad Street because it is a dead-end road and traffic cannot get down there from any other direction if there is emergency.
But Broad Street's been bad my entire life. My parents live right next to the vet. Between bus traffic and my 38 years, it's gotten worse, but Broad Street's
Yeah, but
always
I've been in Big Rock since 2011. I've dropped someone off there and it has not been like this until COVID.
Oh, I know, I'm
There
agreeing
was,
with you.
I mean, we all parked. There was never stopping. You could go both directions. You don't have,
Unless someone's coming at you in the opposing traffic, which I'm gonna discuss it with the chief, cause that shit's gotta stop.
well, but it's dangerous because people are trying to get to the, FedEx and UPS are still trying to deliver down there at that time. I mean, FedEx will completely block the road. You can't even come from the school because FedEx is blocking the drive or blocking to deliver. Because they have to go all the way around that entire line of cars that lines up some days almost to Marathon.
It is the council's privilege to push that issue. That's not the recommendation I'm bringing forth.
But I don't agree with this recommendation based on the fact that the same exact thing is happening on Broad Street and we're doing nothing about it. Why are we only choosing to do something on Liberty Street when Broad Street has the same exact issue?
There's no question that this recommendation is being accommodative of the operation that the school has chosen to take. That we're accommodating them, allowing the queue to be broad and do as much as they can to keep it out of the intersection of Main. The extent to which that your fellow council members may agree with you and feels that that's no longer acceptable, and we want to also post there and enforce it and require the school to do something different operationally or to put the queue only on their property, that is your privilege to do. That's not the recommendation I brought forth. If the council wants to do more than that, all it takes is an action of this council.
You said that Casey's considering having a staging in their parking lot?
The schools, we're gonna ask them about that. I don't know what the answer to that was.
Okay, so that is still on the table, but just not researched.
I feel like these are all just Band-Aids though. We're just Band-Aiding a problem that needs to be resolved.
I think the only way you're gonna resolve it is to loop a road.
So, but we're spending, but they're spending money on a parking lot and yet another loop. I mean, plus they spent money on expanding that parking lot the year before. So we're spending money here, spending money here, spending money here, which all could be compiled and used to spend to expand the road in general.
The schools are spending that money.
Yes, I know.
I just clarified for them.
I guess we keep adding Band-Aids and covering it up, but we're not actually fixing the problem. And I think by doing this, we're enabling the Band-Aid. And it needs to be resolved completely. They either need to put parking in there and allow the parents to park and pick up their children to prevent, I mean, you're hindering every single citizen on that street, including businesses, including a group home that's down near the school. There's employees that come and go right around the same time that have to get out of that group home too. In any emergency situation, that is an absolute nightmare for everybody. Children, teachers, administration, parents, residents, businesses, all of it. And I think this is just another Band-Aid.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I sit here and you guys criticize the Chestnut schools. I know they're trying to do the best they can. My wife's the principal at Big Rock. And I sit here and I hear the bashing of Chestnut School. Where's village council on this? The guys, that you people can get together with the school district and work together to solve a problem.
Brad, I'm gonna correct you. No one is bashing anybody. We're just talking about a problem that is down there. There's no bashing, there's no name calling.
I didn't say it's name calling.
You said bashing and.
Well, I just feel like
bashing is.
the schools are getting a bad rep because they take the phone calls from from all the people that are thing, but I don't see, all I see is, I don't see the council here trying to work. Are you guys trying to work with the school
This
district?
is a plan that we came up with the
This
school.
plan?
This is, yes,
Okay, and this plan ain't gonna work now?
we're just.
We're individuals. This is my personal opinion.
Okay, yeah, this recommendation is a fruit of discussions that I had with the superintendent. And without me attempting to dictate to them how to operationally, trying to find a happy medium. Yes, it is being accommodative, and as has been shown before, I can offer you recommendations that the majority of you may even disagree with, and I'm happy to go the direction that the council would like to go.
Did they ever talk about putting that loop road in there?
Which loop road are we talking about?
It goes all by the well,
Oh,
and then you come back to Liberty?
that was the concept that I talked to the superintendent early about. The traffic engineers that did the study did not see that as a viable option. They presented other options in that traffic study report. This was the option the schools thought met their operational goals, and so this is the one they're pursuing. But doing a loop further down Broad to the dead end and coming back was not viewed by the traffic engineers as a better option.
The problem is they don't live around here, like everybody else does.
Sure. The extent to which, so that would have been using, if you continue past the Big Rock driveways towards the well house, and if we were to create some sort of a loop, there'd be more space for queuing, and then more of the cars.
Well, they talked about looping it out to Liberty and having them go out to Dytring and then go down Stewart Road and all that stuff, start congesting that whole area.
Yeah, I think there may be discussions about that in the past. I was not a part of those discussions. And certainly that would be a much greater expense to do for the schools to.
Well, county, they talked to county about even adding on to doing that for the road, besides the village, I mean, it's gotta be somebody all together.
Yeah.
State funding or something for a project like that.
This is small potatoes in the state funding world.
That's, we have this, right?
What's that?
that parking lot over by the Big Rock does not currently exist, right?
Right.
So they would be taking the parking from the loop, the created loop,
Over here.
and shifting it over there.
Right.
So they'd be coming in like this,
Yeah.
and then you got this coming
I
here.
mean, no matter what we do, cars are gonna queue up on that road. There's nothing you can do about it. It's gonna happen.
Not with the current
It's just-
way it's operating
it's-
now.
The only way to, we're just gonna have to find a way to make it better. It'll never be perfect, but at least it can be better.
First of all, how did they ever decide to put a school down there anyways?
Hey, man, I wasn't even alive when this school got built.
Well, when they build it, everybody uses the bus. And I can tell you that these pressures are being faced most everywhere. I saw it where I was at in my 2 previous communities. The number of parents that choose to pick up their children is astronomically more than it used to be. And that just changes the use of the school. If they were coming to propose a new elementary school there today, we'd be saying no, you have to address the traffic issues that weren't around when the school was built.
But we also lost 2 elementary schools in the last 10 years, which puts more strain on Big Rock than what there have been too.
Well, in all kinds of ways.
Oh, yeah, and then the teachers and principals have said that the 3 and 4-year-old programs are getting bigger, stronger, fuller.
Which is good.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, the school is doing well in the pre-kindergarten eras. So we're just getting more parents, more kids, and the loss of the 2 schools puts again more pressure that probably wasn't originally in any of the plans.
Right.
And if we're just asked to put up some signs for Liberty, I'm not opposed to that, just in the simple fact that it's not going to solve anything, but at least if it makes Liberty safer.
Well, people need to be
The
a
same,
little.
but the same problem is happening on Broad is what the thing is. So we're solving it just on Liberty, but the problem still resides on Broad.
So tonight we take care of Liberty and then figure out what to do with Broad next. I mean, it's not like this is the last chance we have at it. We still can have discussions about Broad.
Absolutely. I would just hate to see the school spend all this money to change this parking area again, and then add another loop system, and we're still sitting with the same problem.
Well, I'm not convinced if we
There
put,
needs to be another outlet on Broad.
I mean, I don't disagree, but if we put another road looping to Liberty, we can't control people coming all the way back to Maine. We can't force them to take Dytring and around back to the other side of town. So we're just gonna congestion back at Main Street again like we do now with the bus traffic and everything else, because you can't, I mean, minus an officer directing traffic, we can't force people to take a path.
No.
So the road looping around doesn't necessarily solve anything either, and that's an extra cost further than what they're planning to do now.
But I think it moves people a little bit faster, and people can come in from multiple directions versus all coming in from one direction. When they back up on Broad Street, they also back up on 57 from coming in from the south, and they'll back up on Broad Street across Main, and then sometimes even across in front of the ambulance garage on Main.
And that's the biggest problem, and that.
I mean,
That's what their work on site, to have the second loop is intended to eliminate, is that, yes, there will still be queuing on Broad, but that queue would not back up into the main intersection of Pasco. Accommodating more on-site queuing relieves that pressure based on the study of the counts. It still creates the issue on Broad, it just doesn't create it main and Pasco.
in theory,
Based on the counts that were out there, the number of cars that queue past the intersection.
how many days did they do the traffic study for?
It was based on a peak day. They weren't out multiple days looking. They relied on other people's accounts of that. This was a peak day, number of cars that they were out there for, an average day or what have you. Normal operations going on. Nothing was being missed. And so they talked to folks like our police and others to say, is this about normal? So to speak,
I would also, like, when they do go back to school, we're gonna need to talk
staff there and explain to them that if it's happened more than once, okay, good job. There will be people coming the wrong way down the lane, skip the line. It's usually teachers. And if they keep doing it, I'm just gonna park my truck across the road and call the cops. Because you can't do that. It's dangerous. So that's an information.
Yeah, I think that's.
Because that's a warning. Fair warning. I mean, we can do this one and come full time, see how this new system works. It's gonna take a minute for everybody to get on board with going to the right lane. See what happens, and then I guess the rest of it.
It's one of those, it's a scary moment. I mean, when you sit there and you're waiting and you're watching these cars flying by and going head on from each other, the FedEx starts blocking, this guy has to get to the vet, this person's trying to get into their driveway.
Well, part of it is people have no patience. They can't let someone else out or in. It's always
And I sit there every single day and I watch it. And every day I say, okay, hope today's not the day when somebody gets hurt.
Or a kid walking down the sidewalk and somebody here.
And when school is out, they move quick. They are so efficient. They get those kids in and out, and it goes. It's just the queue from waiting until you get there. And even leaving from one school to another, you're still waiting in line from the time I leave the high school, and by the time I get to Big Rock, I'm still waiting for school to get out. I still have another 16 minutes before school gets out.
Remember too, these are suggestions that the study was given to the school.
Right.
Those are the options that they were given, long-term or short-term. They're just going off the suggestions.
Right. I mean, what else are you gonna do? You know, that's the problem. You put a road in just for the school. I don't know. Well, we can't.
It's not just for the school though. It's for the residents on that road as well. You know, this puts the school being backed, or the road being backed up isn't just for the school. I mean, it's for all of the residents, it's for the businesses, it's for the parents, it's for the teachers, it's for anybody that has an appointment directly after school. I mean, it impacts a lot of people.
However, I do agree that a good step would be putting up no parking signs on Liberty.
Yep. It can't hurt. Right.
Well, like we said, we start controlling one area, we find a solution, some sort of smaller solution there, and we start working on it. Obviously, like we said, this has changed over time since school was put there. It's going to take a little creative thinking on everybody's thoughts. Maybe this helps a lot, maybe it doesn't. We'll find out.
It's probably going to cheat you.
Right.
That's the way it works.
Right. By next year, we will have a whole different problem somewhere down there that we're trying to figure out the solution to that one.
Well, and at some point, school may have to get bigger.
Yeah.
Physically bigger, so more students.
Well, it's already done that once.
Yeah. Well, then shifting fourth grade over. Did so much get bigger. Shift kids to middle school. It's a good problem to have.
So at the end of the day, how do you answer to the residents on Broad Street that we're helping out the residents on Liberty Street, but we're not helping out the residents on Broad Street?
We just wait for those to come in here and yell at us, like you did.
But I'd also like to see how the new model works. But people are going to be jerks and park or drive in the wrong lane, and yeah, we're going to have to set a new count.
Well, they still do that.
Yeah. Get somebody out there to start pulling, which is going to make it worse, right? So if you pull someone over, now you're blocking that lane, but of course they won't do it again because it's going to be really embarrassing. So, but still blocking that lane for 15, 20 minutes.
You don't think people will just skip the area and go to Broad Street? I kind of agree with her on that you need people working both roads.
It'll shift for sure. The traffic will shift around.
town. It'll be the path of least resistance. It always is. So.
I believe the difference is, though, Fran, is they exit the preschoolers out the back of the school, and then the rest of the children come out the front of the school. And the time is staggered, but just by a small margin. So that's why the preschooler parents are staged, I believe, on Liberty, is because that's where they outlet their children, where kindergarten through third is outletted from what's considered the front of the school. But I agree, they could come over, but I don't think that they can pick their kids up there, unless they actually go into the school to get their kids.
A motion to approve the signs on Liberty Street.
Resolution 04-2022.
Yes, that's the one.
I'll second it. We have, motion and support to approve resolution 04-2022. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Vicky,
Yes.
Marner,
Yes.
Renzo,
Yes.
Hoover,
Yes.
Shadell,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Motion carries. Nothing stops us from doing the same on Broad. So, let's see what happens.
I understand, but that makes it hard for those of us parents that have somewhere to be after they pick their kids up, because now we can't wait. We have to wait until school lets out to even go get our kids. Because there's nowhere to stage on the Broad. Where do you stage? If they can stage the parents at the KC Hall, which is definitely beneficial, but if this now has to carry over to Broad, where do we stage?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so.
In the field behind the school.
Well, that's what I look for, you tell me they can stage out that road right there.
I mean, and those of us that pick up at multiple schools, I mean, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what, am I gonna cruise town? I mean, are 15 parents gonna cruise town every day waiting to go get their children from other schools because we're no longer allowed to stage?
It's gonna cost you a lot in gas. Especially if you have a big vehicle you drive.
Got a lot of kids.
Your bus.
All right.
Boston's is only open for like a month after school starts.
Right. Moving into committee reports, infrastructure.
I was given some information on DWAM grant. There's 75 inspections needed yet. There's been 31 appointments set up as of today, but they still need 44 more to complete the survey because of the state. So, and we're gonna send another set of cards out, I understand.
At what point do we start shutting off meters?
It's still,
I'm still requesting the door tag thing.
it's still the nuclear option. We're trying to, we keep trying to.
It's also not a great time of year because a lot of people are gone.
Right.
Very busy.
That was one of the things we discussed, was that it might be kind of hard to reach these people right now this time of year with people going in and out of town and summer vacations and whatnot. Like I said, we'll keep trying, like, I think the dates that they gave us was only like over a 1 week time.
Right.
They said trying to tie people down to that time frame might be a difficulty.
Chuck said he was gonna try to add a couple more dates to
We
it.
did end up extending it, so the appointment's gonna be set for next week or the week after. If it ever comes to it, we will send a formal letter.
But if they get in the cards, they should be able to say, hey, I got my card, but I can't do these dates, you know.
Yeah.
Can we set up something else, you know, with these other dates, man?
Yeah,
Especially after school starts, we're gonna have more people at home now.
Well, yeah, so August is, like, nobody's around because it's the best month in Michigan, aside from November.
I'm still glad to see some better results with what we've been working on, so.
As far as the infrastructure, anything else?
Finance and admin?
We met. Discuss the survey.
That it?
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Public safety, no meeting there. EDA?
They're not meeting this summer.
Right. Chamber, I believe, I missed that. Hold on, count.
planning commission,
23rd
23rd, 3 weeks, yeah.
at 7 p.m.
airport?
Nope.
Fire board?
Since the last meeting, we've been busy, we had 14 runs, bringing 109 to the date. This weekend, there's gonna be work details, we're working around the fire department and cleaning and everything. Of course, the fair is going on, we got 3 events that we gotta cover, plus haul water out there to keep down the dust out there for them.
And fireworks too, I
So yeah, there's gonna be guys staged out there for that. Wednesday is gonna be Kids Day for Touch the Trucks, and we're taking our ladder truck out there so the kids can look at the ladder truck and that. And then the next fire board meeting is, next Wednesday at 6 p.m. the 10th.
I'll be, any problem with wildfires or anything, cause it's so dry?
No, it's been kind of good, even in the whole area. It's all out in California, not west.
Yeah, our problems will come eventually. Task force?
That's August.
Alright, public statement, limited 3 minutes, any topic? Frank, Eric? Mike Navarre?
Yes.
Okay. Karen Frank Kukulis?
We really don't have anything unless there's marijuana ordinance discussion. I'll be able to speak then.
Yeah. Oh, well, Rod? Okay. Nobody. Alright, moving on into council member statements, any council member wish to make a statement?
Just keep the thoughts and prayers to Pat Yule's family and Darren Horger's family. I know this whole week has been something for the community, so just keep that, all the families in mind.
Definitely not been a great week.
No.
Village staff reports, village administrator?
Thank you, Mr. President, and again, apologies for the police chief having conflicts on the next few meetings, but you'll have a report from her. Of course, we have the fair going on this week. Really nothing to highlight. Only thing I would share, since everybody who's running for village office this fall is in this room, I will offer that what I've always done in my career, I offer myself as a resource to answer questions that you may have about fact-checking issues or policies. Please don't hesitate to ask, and all this is, of course, to help prevent any inaccurate information or misunderstanding for residents. So I'm available to answer questions.
Thank you.
Oh, I do have a question for James.
Yeah.
The ordinance officer, making rounds actually with weeds and things like that, tall grasses, are we making any progress?
Progress is made. We're not where we want to be. Daniel McClellan's on staff, and he's been catching up. We've been getting some folks. If you know of anybody, please make sure they're on our radar.
Okay.
But he is making progress. Yes.
Aside from the 5 on your road that are.
Always? And again, no, not a complaint, just as a general, because I know we hit some time where catch up was gonna be.
Yeah.
It is, and I just don't. I don't want to take for granted that he already knows about a property. Maybe he doesn't know. So if you know of any, I can just make sure they're on his list.
I have a question, just totally off. If there is a tree branch on somebody's property that is like blocking a stop sign, is that something we go take care of, or we reach out to them to take care of?
Who's them?
The resident,
property.
yeah.
If it is, I'm assuming it would be a tree that's on our right of way anyway, or maybe if it's coming from their property, maybe we do reach out, but we try not to let that situation go on too long if we know about it. But if it's our right of way tree, we try to clean that up.
You talking one about Liberty?
Project there.
Oh, there's one on Liberty and Chapman too.
Yeah, that one's on the list to get cut here as a mulberry tree.
Yeah, because you gotta pull right up to the intersection to see if any cars coming from the south.
When you say Clark and Bear.
Yes.
And someone had approached me, they would like us to look at our ordinance as well around abandoned vehicles and blight mainly. So that sounds like a fun winter project.
I already started kind of peeking into it, and the ordinance does say one licensed and one unlicensed.
There are communities
As long as
that
they
will not
walk
allow any unlicensed.
Yeah, and that's gonna be something that's gonna have to be discussed, especially because we have the ORV on the streets that, with the ordinance.
That's not a vehicle, that's a different class. But yes, you could discern that in the ordinance, but there's nuances to talk about.
Talking about ordinances and that. The last few days, I have noticed golf carts going down the bike lanes. And I had one over on Wood and, Church Street, go right through the stop sign without even stopping. Huh? Yeah. So, we might have to put something in the paper about if you get a ticket, you're gonna deserve it, especially with, there's one down 9th Street that had 7 kids on it the other night.
Start writing them tickets. Yeah, if our police sees that, I don't have a reason to think they will.
By the time you call them, as soon as somebody's on, they're gone, they're past already, you don't know which way they went. Danielle and I sat right over here and came right down through here on the trail.
I don't think it's a bad idea to, maybe on the back of our water bills, to remind people of what the local ordinances and laws are. Off the paved trails, only on the back streets. Maybe a Facebook post to remind people what the laws and regulations are. People get a little lax, they get comfortable, they forget. It doesn't click. Or they don't care, but at least we are we're at least allowing a little bit of a grace by reminding people that, our police department has saw and witnessed plenty of incidents. Remember, these are rules and laws and regulations. We don't want to lose the privilege of being able to use ORVs. Communication goes a long way. I think we just talked about that. Yeah.
Weren't the bike lanes installed from part of a federal grant or a state grant?
No, state highway did it.
But it wasn't our choice.
It kind of wasn't
a choice. I think you probably did, because you got a road diet out of it too, right? Yeah.
That's okay, that's what I was thinking.
They usually will
incentive
defer to you.
Yeah.
I think it was based off a traffic study MDOT recommended removing the second lanes based on the amount of traffic that came through town, something along that line.
Yeah, and our parking, the parallel parking downtown was.
You could not back into the highway.
Right.
Yeah. I know getting out was scary at times. Having that bike lane there it's great. Especially for the areas in front of the pharmacies, a lot of the older crowd use those parking spaces and they take a little longer to get out of their vehicles sometimes, especially if they have an assistance they need with the walker or cane. So I absolutely love having that little bit of extra room for safety measures.
By Showboat, you open your door and it's gone.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on into the work session, let's go to the survey results. James, you want to present these? Yeah, I should be able to even pull them up on the screen for you. I like the slicing and dicing. So we have quite a bit of data there, and just wanted to try to give you a quick overview of what that looks like.
Yeah.
No, not the right.
Nice choice.
Yeah, that's not the right answer.
HBO Max.
So what's everybody's favorite?
Oh, right there, I'm good. No way, no.
Hard Knocks is, what, 8
There
years?
we go.
Lions on Hard Knocks.
Just, first of all, the first question would be, okay, who answered the survey? What kind of confidence do you have in that you have a representative sample? And so, some data to help you with that. 1,860 registered voters in the village. All of them received a survey. They could do it by paper. They could do it online. Actually, I don't have a breakdown of how many did what, and that would probably be interesting. But you got over 500 responses for over a 27% response rate. In the survey world, that's good. 15 is kind of the floor. 25 is respectable. 35 plus is great, and I've had that in my career. But at this level of response, you have a 95% confidence level with a 4% margin there. What that means is if you were to go around the village and grab 500 random people over and over and over again, 95% of the time, they're gonna give you the same answers within plus or minus 4% of what you see there. So this is solid information, for your consideration. Another question is, okay, you know, one of the primary purposes of the survey was to measure sentiment about marijuana businesses and licenses and facilities. What you wouldn't want to have is a whole bunch of responses from people who are skew on one side of the scale or not. And so, you know, we asked the question about whether they supported the legalization of medical marijuana in 2008 and or the legalization of adult recreational use in 2018. And you can see the responses there. The combined shows, you know, who agreed and disagreed with the support for that versus what your actual election results were in 2008 and 2018. Fairly close, some deviation, maybe more so as you look at the 2018 results. You know, 46% of village voters voted against that, whereas 41% of the survey respondents disagreed with supporting it. It's pretty close. On the agree side, 54% of your voters in 2018 approved it, while 44% of the respondents were approving it. So there's a difference. You have to take that for what it's worth as you look at the data and say, okay, is this potentially skewed because less of the respondents were supportive of legalization in the first place. Demographics, it can't be ignored that you had a much higher percent of response from your 65 and over crowd, even your 55 to 64. In the 65 and over, 49% of all those folks who received the survey answered it. That's much higher than your other groups, of course. They do represent 28% of your population. They are the highest percentage group of your demographics to begin with. And then at 28%, but below that is just another little indication of what kind of response rate you received by age group. Pretty good response rate amongst the other demographics as well, with the exception of your 18 to 24 and your 35 to 44. You only had a 10 and 12% response rate in those groups. Again, I'd prefer to see a 15% or more. And so as you look at the data, you have to consider that as to some missing voices in the feedback. The other thing that we wanted to do is to divide the village into sectors, physically speaking, so that we can see like issues like odor, if they're skewed by how close you are to facilities. The responses were fairly consistent with what your actual counts are. That's what's on the right-hand side, what percentage of your homes and your voters are located in those areas. And then you see what kind of response rate you received from those different areas. So that gives you a little bit of idea of who answered the survey before you look at what the data is. On the marijuana regulation questions, you'd see what the where the thoughts were at on agreeing or disagreeing with the legalization of marijuana. In the first place, retail, indoor, outdoor facilities, odor. We see a little bit of a heat map there of concerns around odor and outdoor growth facilities. Certainly something that we're already looking at, both of those as we look at our regulations. I'm sure you find this information instructive as you choose those policies going forward. We asked about the pending street ballot issue, that the language that you approved at the last meeting. Pretty good response. There was a 54% knee-jerk reaction support for renewing at the lower millage rate, and only 25% opposed. I preferred that to be 60% as a knee-jerk reaction, but with 20% undecided and only 25% opposed. You're in fairly good shape. But we also asked them, hey, look, the road commission is also going to be proposing a countywide road tax. Are you supportive of that? There's the answer. I don't know that we care or not. But then we wanted to ask them, now that you know there's going to be 2 road and street millages on the ballot, do you still support ours? Number goes down on the support side about 8%, that just means that 10% more became undecided about it. Plenty of opportunity to communicate what it's about, what we're doing, what we're not doing. It's one of the nuances that in this deal is that the road commission's gonna levy a millage, but all of that millage for our taxable value comes back to us as if we were levying that millage. So if residents knew that that countywide millage was coming back to their village streets, would that color their response to this issue?
I think we break that down for the villages and the township.
Yes, the village specifically would get our own. And I have an email if they ever try to say otherwise. And really that has to be that way because many villages, cities have their own street road millages already. And a lot of those voters would otherwise say no. Why would I pay taxes that only goes to benefit the county or some other township or something? So that would come back to us. So we've got some explaining to do in the next couple of months leading up to the November election, and we plan to do that. Quality of life, fairly good overall. These are standard questions that, are asked in other places that we can compare ourselves to, and there was good responses on that. If anything, maybe a little bit weaker on the enjoyable place for young adults. Not surprising for kind of the small town rural place we're at, that there's some limitations there. But really more of that is in the neutral zone. It's not necessarily that they disagree with that, it's just not as strongly agreeing with that. And then the other one like that is a great place to have a business. 12% didn't even know, and 29% were neutral because they don't own businesses, maybe they don't know. The next set of questions, under 6 and 7, each one is interesting, and you can look at it. There's a fair amount of satisfaction with village services and the value that they're receiving for their tax dollar. There's not any strongly negative ones. If anything, the strongest ones are drinking water quality and water sewer utility rates, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But fairly satisfied with village services. The next set of questions under 7 for priorities, this is asking how important these services are to residents. And that becomes key in an analysis I'll look at here in a few minutes with you of how their satisfaction and importance. You put the two together, what that means for you in decision making. But you can see that they view those issues as important, some more than others. Broadband internet, we wanted to ask some questions related to a lot of the stimulus funds and infrastructure dollars trickling down from federal and state is maybe opening up some opportunities to even consider a look at bringing in fiber and offering municipal internet at maybe competitive rates. So we asked some questions along those lines. I don't think there's a real strong market for that possibility quite yet, but we'll pay attention to the grant dollars out there and maybe look at that down the road. Excuse me. Planning and zoning, we'll share this feedback with the Planning Commission as well. Fairly satisfied with our level of enforcement on most issues. The stronger areas that they'd like to see more enforcement, blight and grass and weeds. Any surprises there? No? Yep, so those are things that we did get behind on because of the vacancy and that we can always do more of, and so we'll try to demonstrate good value there and be strategic about that. And then just general questions about communication preferences and their demographics, as we talked about already. This next one is a cross-tabulation on marijuana responses. And this provides some value to kind of how to break down how different respondents groups answered these questions. For instance, if you look at your top 2 groups there, these are how folks responded on the issue of legalizing medical marijuana or recreational use of marijuana. And then for each group, however they answered that question, as you go across to the right, you see how they answered the other questions. So for instance, the top line is somebody who did not support medical marijuana in 2008, that they strongly disagreed with it. When you look at how they answered on retail and indoor and outdoor, they also strongly disagree that we should allow that, or that order 10 good. And so you see that sort of diagonal line, which is a direct correlation. Because the fifth one down is somebody who strongly agreed with legalizing medical marijuana, well, there's 71% in agreement that we should have indoor and retail and outdoor. They're in support of those things. So no surprises there. There's a correlation between what people think about legalizing it at all to begin with and their support of the facilities going forward. Definitely feelings though about odor and the acceptability of it, even amongst those who are supportive of it. If you look at these numbers here, so these are folks that were in agreement with medical marijuana. Order here. We're in agreement with medical marijuana. These are folks who agreed with recreational use of marijuana, and a majority of them are still feel that the odor is not acceptable. No surprise, and that's, as we've talked about, we still are looking at regulations to try to improve that situation. Issues of outdoor also had a mixed response, even from some of those folks that were in agreement with legalizing. Lighting was not so much an issue, a lot of neutral on that. So there's not strong feedback that the lighting is an issue there. Not a lot of support for regulating personal grows. There are some questions about whether it's improved the local economy. Again, there is a correlation on whether they're in favor or against legalizing, on whether they think it's improved the local economy. But even that question of good corporate citizenship, there appears to be some opportunity for the facilities to continue to demonstrate that, to communicate it, to show how they are being good corporate citizens. If you continue on and using other parts of the cross-tabulation, you can look down at what certain age groups answered. There's some interesting dynamics happening there, that even in, say, the 18 to 24 age group, 34% of them don't even agree with allowing retail facilities. 43% would say they're opposed to having indoor grows. So there's some differences in age. We know that when we looked before, there are some groups that are underrepresented there, 18 to 24 and the 35 to 44 that we talked about. We did also ask if they have any personal affiliation with a marijuana facility or grow their own. You can look at what the responses are there. We asked that question about their general location of their home, and what that might be most interesting is how they answered the questions about odor, which are, I think, this one in the middle. Depending on where they were, it's not a surprise that the lowest number of people who are concerned about odor are in the south and west of the community, furthest away from the facilities. But as you get the other ones close on the east side and on the north side, closer to the facilities, have more odor concerns. So that cross-tabulation is there. Feel free to take a deeper dive on different groups and how they responded. This analysis is one that I've been using for years, and I get a lot of value out of. And it's called an importance performance analysis. And what that does is it takes all those questions from 6 and 7 that overlap on different village services and looks at how folks responded to how satisfied they were with the service and then how important that service was to them. And you plot it on a matrix like this, and it allows you to look at sort of optimal areas for your efforts and budget and all that kind of stuff. Basically, and it feels a little bit backwards, the higher up that somebody's opinion is vertically on visually, the less satisfied they are with that particular service. So the more satisfied they are with a service, the lower down it is. And then the further you move to the right, the less important that issue is to them. So the issues further to the left are viewed as more important. In most cases, you would have it'd be more scattered than this. And so the quadrants, the upper right-hand quadrant would be lower impact, lower satisfaction. That would be, people aren't necessarily super satisfied with the issue, but it's not that important to them. So if you were spending a lot of money there, one, you're not getting results, people aren't necessarily loving the service, but they also don't care that much. So you don't necessarily have that. The lower right-hand quadrant would be things that folks are pretty satisfied with, but they're not that important to them. So if you were spending a lot of money on an issue, yeah, okay, people are really happy with the quality of that particular service, but it's not that important at the end of the day with their satisfaction, with their community, with their village government. You might have to reevaluate your priorities a little bit. The lower left-hand corner is sort of your optimal space. People are satisfied with the service, and it's important to them. That's great. You'd love for everything to be in that corner. As you go up to that upper left-hand quadrant, now you're talking about, this is where your strategic prioritization can happen. These are issues where the higher up you go, there's a lowering satisfaction with the service. And the further left you go, the more important the issue is to them. And so, in particular, I pay attention to, you see, utility rates and water quality are kind of the two that stand out the most on that. There are issues that there's concern about from a resident perspective, and issues that are important to them. Now, you can't miss the irony of they want better quality water, but they don't want to pay more for it. It doesn't quite work that way. But most of all, what I found on these issues is there's opportunity for communication, for people to understand. How does our water quality stand up to our neighbors? Is there an understanding that we don't buy our water from other places like they perhaps assume we do? Do they understand that we don't really treat it for iron or anything? It's chlorinated well water, quite simply. So we can do more to communicate to help people understand what that water quality is. And then on utility rates, are we really that bad? If we were to compare ourselves to neighboring communities, how do our rates stack up? What does an average household bill look like here versus Owasso and St. Charles and Montrose and other places around us? If we were to look at that, communicate it, perhaps it'd be a better understanding and less of a negative view. I know Owasso just had to raise their utility rates by double-digit percentages. Not to throw them under the bus, but we could share that story to say it could be worse. It could be in Owasso. But those are things we talk about. And so communication is actually right there, pretty close by. And those are things we improve on, and people view that as important. And we did talk about that in the Finance Administration Committee related to this and other things. Communication, using the social media outlets, using the newsletter, there's opportunities there. We could be doing better at that. So, that's the flyover. I provided a little word cloud with different common themes that were in the comments, and feel free to look at those, just give you a flavor without having to read through every last word, but that's there for you as well. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
On that survey where you send out, how many people say didn't answer that survey for getting a water check? That said the quality of the water may improve.
Yeah, we didn't cross-correlate. This wasn't on the survey, so we didn't know who responded. But
anybody that answered that said the water quality, well, we're trying to get the water quality up there, checking for lead and everything.
Yeah.
So they got to do their part.
71% wanted communication by mail also, but when we mailed out our letters.
Yeah, well, we found out our mail is treated like junk mail in some places. So. Yeah.
2022. Anybody else have questions? Does anybody have anything they would like to review of the marijuana ordinances? Does anybody?
Well, we spoke a little bit at Finance Administration, I don't wanna take up too much time, but at least plant the seed. A good discussion around, the possibility of considering that the outdoor facilities, giving a certain number of years by which they would need to transition to indoor facilities. That is it's been debated, there seemed to be, some consensus to wanna consider that more. I'd be very interested in hearing feedback from the council either here or otherwise about, whether to consider that idea further. There are pros and cons to either way. There was no discussion of how many years is the right amount of time, but, something, and I can defer to my committee representatives if they would add to that. It was just talked about a little bit, something we may wanna talk about down the
We had
road.
talked about it at a prior meeting, under the consideration. I mean, I understand it's an expense, but the expense that they would have to put into it, will eventually come back. I mean, they're growing 365 days a year versus only one season of 3 to 4 months. No ideas, obviously, no logistics of how we would make it happen. It was just a discussion that we've had. I think this is the second time it's come up in a meeting. One time with Kim, this time obviously without him. But it's definitely something that we've talked about. And wondered if it would be a possibility. I'm sure it wouldn't be taken very kindly, in terms of, the facilities, but if you wanna play ball, you gotta play ball.
We're also looking at a pretty big industry shakeup, I think, as big guy swallows little guy. And the prices drop significantly.
Then you got the federal government who might get their hands into it now.
Well, they know what they gotta do.
Yeah.
They won't put their hands in everything.
And any little change in the upset them anyhow, so.
But I don't care. Right.
Did Keith's vegetative barrier go to the planning commission?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
And we haven't, all of those,
That
we
was
look
a
at
suggestion.
Yeah.
Don't get that dude riled up again. Jesus.
were we looking to piecemeal that, or were we waiting until you had a final product for them to
I think we'll do
review?
it all at once.
Okay, that's good.
We haven't had a ton, but I think a lot of the stuff that's been brought forward is good. We can.
That was my understanding, is that we would, once all the ideas are in one place, then the planning commission would be an advisory board for that as well.
Are you going to, should I write a proposal for the suggestion that I had about not allowing any type of delinquency in licensing?
Yes.
Yeah,
You and I talked about it, I talked about it in finance and administration again tonight.
yeah, you wanna make sure it's on Matt's list. I'm pretty sure my list included something along those lines as well.
I just wanna make sure it's covered, because if it's not, then I'll write the proposal and add it, but if it's already covered, then,
It is not in there yet.
okay. Yeah.
I like what you just said about eventually making them convert to indoor from outdoor. But I'd also like to see, I know you've got a camp right now to do your review in a year. I'd like to see not extend any more outdoor growth either while you're in the
They're
process.
capped right now. That was the.
No, I realize that, but if you don't get this done by the time you do your review,
Oh, I got you.
you're gonna still have to approve what is coming in.
Existing outdoor facilities that still have more room to plant could come in and get more.
I would think that would be a helpful way to sort of start to curb this too.
I think there was language that was discussed about a time limit of allowing them to decide how many licenses they would need in the future, and capping it at some point.
Even the suggestion
Just the language, has to be worked out.
of transitioning to indoor, the number of years, it could be a number. I mean, we really haven't honed in on that. I mean, right now, because of the market, many of those facilities probably haven't gathered, most of our licensed facilities are not yet profitable even. And so that whole cost benefit of trying to say, now you gotta build indoor, the feasibility of that is down the road. So we lean into that, we'll have to look at just how many years we think that would be.
If we based everything on profit though, I mean, nobody would go anywhere for a very long time, and it's not even just the cannabis industry. I mean, you can become much more profitable if you do build a building and you can grow 365 days a year versus holding and waiting until you have enough profit to build a building. I mean, it could take 15 years to have enough profit only growing 3 months a year. So you gotta weigh that, and sometimes you gotta put your knock out there and build the building.
And get your builder season again, it's starting to blossom around, so.
I haven't noticed.
I just got it for the first time today.
Today? Okay. I'll make a copy that way. That's all we got.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported to adjourn. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?